Jerusalem was hundreds of miles away, yet as I looked at the Hebrew letters, the distance seemed irrelevant. I sat before an old rabbi, seeking to understand the words that generations had carried through exile. He placed his hand upon the table and said, "If you wish to understand why the land matters, do not begin with today's borders. Begin with Bereshit, with Genesis." He turned the pages slowly. The Torah tells of God's covenant with Abraham and of a land promised to his descendants. Genesis repeatedly connects Abraham and his descendants with the land of Canaan, creating a narrative of origin. Jewish tradition would later make Eretz Yisrael inseparable from covenant, memory, exile, and return. But the rabbi cautioned me that understanding a sacred text requires more than extracting a single sentence. The biblical relationship between Israel and the land is covenantal. It entails heavy obligations. The Torah presents land as a conditional gift, deeply tied to the moral conduct of the people. Consider the stranger. Leviticus 19 commands Israel not merely to tolerate the stranger dwelling among them, but to love the stranger as oneself, remembering their own history of vulnerability. This memory is fundamental. The Torah repeatedly returns Israel to Egypt because slavery and vulnerability are supposed to become a moral compass for the exercise of power and justice. "You shall not oppress the stranger," the Torah teaches, because you yourselves knew the experience of being strangers. This is a recurring theme that limits the use of absolute power. When I asked about conquest, the rabbi replied, "Judaism has spent centuries interpreting difficult passages. Ancient biblical warfare cannot be simplified into modern political slogans. Biblical texts cannot simply be lifted from their textual and historical setting and transformed into unrestricted commands against whatever modern population someone happens to dislike today." Certainly, the Torah says nothing about Palestinians being sent from Gaza to Egypt or from the West Bank to Jordan. Those are modern political propositions involving modern states and populations. One should not pretend that Moses wrote a modern political program. Many important things cease to be obvious when men desperately want God to agree with their own desires. Jerusalem's centrality emerges with force beyond the 5 books of Moses. The first temple associated with Solomon became the focal point of emerging national and religious consciousness. The destruction of the temple, exile, and the return to Zion became decisive events. The destruction of the Second Temple by Rome in 70 CE cemented the temple in Jewish memory. Now we enter the complicated world of the Third Temple. Jewish expectations concerning redemption and the Messiah developed across centuries of rabbinic literature and medieval philosophy. There is no responsible way to speak as though every Jew holds one identical timetable. Jewish thought is considerably more complicated than a simple political checklist for redemption. The Golden Dome stands unmistakably above Jerusalem. It is an Islamic shrine constructed centuries after the Second Temple's destruction. The same area is sacred to multiple traditions. Eschatological belief does not grant a moral license to destroy another community's sanctuary. Faith and a political program for forcing history are not the same thing at all. To understand the Messiah, you must move beyond the Torah alone. The prophets, like Isaiah and Micah, imagined extraordinary images of peace where nations would cease to learn war. Maimonides discussed the Messiah with remarkable sobriety. He warned against speculative calculations, connecting restoration to Torah observance rather than purely physical destruction. Centuries of disagreement, Talmud, Midrash, Kabbalah, modern orthodoxy. Anyone who tells you that Judaism has one uncomplicated political interpretation of redemption is giving you a slogan. There is a greater principle, Pikuach Nefesh, the preservation of human life. Rabbinic Judaism gives extraordinary importance to saving life. Human beings are not disposable pieces. The prophet Amos warned that ritual piety is worthless if justice is absent. He condemned those who trample the head of the poor and turn justice to wormwood. The land is lost when justice is perverted. The Palestinians are human beings, not an exegetical inconvenience. A child in Gaza is not responsible for the destruction of the Second Temple. They cannot be transformed into ancient characters. The greatest danger is reading scripture only to discover permission for something we already wanted to do. Absolute language is powerful, but it must be tempered by moral responsibility. Imagine Jerusalem today, the Western Wall, church bells, the call to prayer, pilgrims and families, all inhabiting the same impossible concentration of history and memory. Holiness is easy to proclaim when it concerns stones. The harder question is what it demands when another human being stands before you. Only human beings can make that moral choice. Let us move deeper into the legal ethics of Eretz Yisrael. The concept of Kedushat Haaretz, the holiness of the land, is not merely an abstract status. In Jewish law, it is defined by the commandments that can only be performed there. The Torah makes a radical claim, "The land is mine, for you are strangers and sojourners with me." This legal reality in Leviticus 25 establishes that the land is held in trust, not absolute ownership. The Shemitah, or sabbatical year, further enforces this. Every 7 years the land must rest. Debts are released, and the poor and the stranger have equal access to the harvest. The land belongs to God, not to the state. Jewish law recognizes the Ger Toshav, the resident alien who does not convert to Judaism but lives within the society. The Talmud and later legal codes establish specific rights and protections for these individuals. According to Maimonides, the Ger Toshav must be treated with kindness and supported by the community. They are not outsiders, they are recognized residents with inherent human dignity and legal standing. The Prophet Amos warned that ritual piety is worthless if justice is absent. He condemned those who trample the head of the poor and turn justice to wormwood. The land is lost when justice is perverted. Micah asked, "What does the Lord require of you?" The answer was not a temple or a conquest, but to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly. This is the true blueprint for dwelling in the land. Isaiah envisioned a future where nations would no longer lift up sword against nation. This messianic expectation is centered on universal peace and the recognition of God's justice, not the domination of one people over another. In the Mishneh Torah, Maimonides codifies the laws of kings and wars. He establishes that even in war, there are strict ethical boundaries. The goal of the king is to establish justice and peace, not personal glory. Maimonides emphasizes that the Messianic era is defined by the study of Torah and the removal of the yoke of foreign nations, not by a change in the laws of nature or the destruction of the world. Modern thinkers like Abraham Joshua Heschel and Emmanuel Levinas have expanded these ancient ideas. They remind us that the face of the other is the primary site of holiness and responsibility. The covenant is not a tribal contract. It is a universal call to ethical life. To claim the land through the Torah is to simultaneously accept the Torah's radical demand for justice for all. The destruction of the Second Temple led to the birth of Rabbinic Judaism. The sanctuary of the Spirit replaced the stones. Holiness was moved from a specific location to the study of the Word and the practice of mitzvot. The return to the land, Aliyah, has been interpreted through many lenses. For some, it is a purely spiritual longing. For others, a national movement. But in every lens, the ethical question remains central. Jerusalem is the city of peace, yet it is also the site of profound conflict. The Torah's demand for holiness requires us to navigate this shared space with extraordinary ethical care and humility. If the land belongs to God, then no human group can claim absolute exclusive ownership that justifies the erasure of another. We are all sojourners in a territory that is ultimately not our own. The prophetic call for justice is not a relic of the past, it is a living demand. To ignore the suffering of our neighbors is to ignore the very Torah we claim to uphold. Moral blind spots are our greatest exile. The Messiah is not a permit for destruction, he is a vision of ultimate reconciliation. The Messianic era is one where the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. Sovereignty in the Torah is always subordinate to the law. A king or a state that ignores the commandments of justice loses the moral foundation for its existence. Power must be served by righteousness. We must move beyond tribal justifications and reclaim the universal ethical vision of the Torah. The land is a place to build a society of justice, not a fortress of exclusion. Human dignity is the highest temple. For 2,000 years, the Torah has been our home in exile. Its words have provided the ethical structure for our survival. That same structure must now guide our return and our treatment of others. The future of the land depends on our ability to integrate ancient wisdom with modern responsibility. We cannot build a holy place upon a foundation of injustice. The bricks of the temple are moral choices. The covenant is an ongoing dialogue between God and humanity. It is not finished, it is being written through our actions every day. The land is the stage upon which this ethical drama unfolds. As the rabbi said, we must begin at the beginning. We must return to the foundational values of Genesis and Exodus to find the path forward. Memory is our most powerful ethical tool. Our inquiry has shown that the Torah is a call to responsibility, not a permit for oppression. The land, the temple, and the Messiah are all parts of a larger vision of a world redeemed through justice. Ultimately, the harder question remains, what does holiness demand when another human being stands before you? The answer is not in the stones, but in our hearts and our legal codes. We have a choice. We can use sacred texts to narrow our vision, or we can use them to expand our empathy. The Torah provides the map, but we must choose to walk the path of righteousness. At Labi Abogados, we believe in the power of analytical rigor and ethical responsibility. Understanding the law, both sacred and secular, is the first step toward building a more just world. Jerusalem remains a concentration of history and hope. Its stones will continue to carry the memories of millennia, but it is the living generation that must decide what those memories mean for today. The journey from Bereshit to the present is a long one, but the direction is clear. We must love the stranger, preserve life, and pursue justice. That is the true holiness of the land and the soul. The intellectuals and concepts we explored, Leviticus, Maimonides, Pikuach Nefesh, Shmita, form a comprehensive summary of the intellectual inquiry, inviting your own study and reflection.